You know, this is a project we've been working on the last 4 or 5 years, and when we started it, you know, it wasn't or thought about doing it, there wasn't a lot of interest until 2007. How many of you guys planted corn in 2007? How many of you replanted corn in 2007? You know, that was the year we had the big freeze, and that was the year we got a lot of questions. Very similar to this year, we had a lot of interest in corn, good corn prices. Everybody's excited about it. We planted early, had a spring just like this past year, and then we got an Easter freeze that killed a lot of corn. So we had to replant corn. And so in response to that, we've done a lot of planting date studies over the last 5 years, and what we've got behind us is one of them. And this is a project that's funded through the Corn and Grain Sorghum Promotion Board. So this is where some of your corn checkoff dollars have been going. And so kind of what I want to do is just tell a little bit about what we've got back behind here. We've got 5 different planting dates. You know, each year we try to get at least 5 of them in, one of them as early as we can, and this year we got one in as early as the 8th of March. And to be honest, Larry, we probably would have had it in earlier, but I didn't have all my seed.
Would have been in earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a lot of producers, you know, from here a little further south that were planting the end of February, and at this point they're harvesting some of that corn. And so this year we've got corn planting dates right out here from the 8th of March all the way up until about the 12th of May on about 2-week intervals. And so we've got 5 different planting dates, and we've got 8 different hybrids. We've got a lot of different popular hybrids that you may be growing. We've got an Armor hybrid. We've got a decab, the 6469. I think we've got a lot of that planted out there this year. We've got 2 or 3 Pioneers. We've got a Pioneer 1615, 2088. So we've got some of the popular hybrids you're probably growing. We've got some different traits. We've got one hybrid out there with or without a BT. So we can evaluate what impact really planting date has in relation to having a BT in it or not. Then we've also got a Viptera hybrid. Anybody familiar with the Viptera trait? This is a brand new corn trait. It's not fully approved everywhere. It's approved in the U.S., but China has not accepted it yet. So if we've got some Viptera corn out there, there was some out there last year, there's a little bit out there this year, and so it's supposed to be designated to the poultry industry. It's not supposed to go into the export market. So that may cause some problems again at harvest. But what I want to do is just kind of go through a management, kind of tell you some things that we've seen throughout the season, and from year to year, a lot of different variability. And, you know, the guys in Chico County, Gus, that plant the end of February, about the time the gin show starts, you know, every year I tell them, well, you know, if you wait 2 or 3 weeks, things will warm up, the corn will come up a lot better, and you won't gain anything by planting that early. Well, tell you what, this year I was wrong. You know, we had the warmest March on record. And so the corn planted the end of February, that first week in March come up. Got excellent stands, it grew off well, and I think it's going to do well. And to me, how well that crop grows off in the very beginning dictates a lot of things. And we've, in previous years of doing these types of studies, if it comes up really good and we're able to keep the water on it and it doesn't turn off 105 degrees, we're going to have good corn. If it sits there and you plant it the 1st of March, it sits there, turns cold, it's waterlogged, turns yellow, you don't end up with quite the stand you want, you're probably not going to have as good a yields as if you'd waited just a little bit. So I think that's one of the things. And, you know, we're talking about the March here, warmest March on record. I think this past year some producers were a little bit hesitant, including myself, to jump out there and plant a lot of acres because, you know, I think a lot of us felt like we were going to have another freeze. And to me, that freeze never occurred this year. And you look at the weather records here, Larry, I think the last freeze we had was the end of February. And it was about 30 degrees or 31 degrees. So we never got that freeze this year. Everything grew off good. The early planted corn, we didn't have to water it nearly as much. And, you know, up here I've got examples of the 5 different planting dates we've got out here. The one over here on the left, the March the 8th planting, grew off good. This one here is, I think, a 113-day hybrid. Looks like a good ear. Planted that early. It was matured to black layer about the 8th or 10th of July. So 10 days ago it was mature. We shut the water off probably close to the 4th of July, or could have. So in a year like this where you're having to water and water and water, being able to shut that water off by planting a little bit earlier was an advantage this year. But even like the 20th of March, this corn here is already a black layer, just, depending on a hybrid. But so if we got corn planted in March, it's probably already a black layer. Now, a lot of years, the 10th of April, that's probably more of an ideal time to me, probably for a little bit here further north. This is a 116-day hybrid. That black starch line has only moved about halfway down. So we really need another watering on that type of corn. So where water's limiting, and we've got some areas this year that people a little bit further north are watering out of reservoirs, they're out of water. And so, planting a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit shorter season hybrid probably was a benefit to them. And of course, we get into some of those later plantings, end of April, we probably got another 3 weeks of watering. So I think the planting date definitely impacts how much water you're going to have to put out there on that crop. But just going through some management things we've seen, there was some southern rust around this year. And typically when we plant early, we get that crop mature before the southern rust comes in, or is a big issue, and the same thing occurred this year. So we've got corn planted in March. It's pretty well mature before the rust come in. We had some later planted corn that we might have had to put a fungicide on. That's really pretty similar between years. We've seen that a lot of instances, and we've did a lot of fungicide trials in the past that if you had March planted corn, we've really not shown any type of a yield benefit putting a fungicide out. Now if we planted in April or May, depending on the year and the weather situation, we may or may not get a benefit there. One of the other things is, say we plant early or late, how do we vary our corn maturity? On soybeans, depending on planting date, we may plant a full season or a short season soybean. Well, on corn, the planting date out here, I've got 111 to 120 day hybrids, and that's about the range we've had in the past. And to be honest, you would think some of those 120 day hybrids would do better when we planted late. And actually, in a small group that we've had, is probably just the opposite. I mean, there's been some 113, 114 day hybrids that were the highest yielding plant in March, the highest yielding plant in April, and the highest yielding plant in May. Whereas some of those 120 day hybrids maybe just didn't have the heat tolerance. Their yields actually went down the later we planted. So our thinking is previously that we could probably plant fuller season hybrids. That may or may not be true, just depending on the type of hybrid we got out there. So the hybrid we pick, and then the later we plant, the taller it's going to get. And so these are representative plants out here. Typically if we plant 1st of March, it's going to be a shorter plant. Not to say lodging won't be a problem, but it's going to be a shorter plant. We plant later, planting end of April, those plants are going to get considerably taller. And so if you've got a tall hybrid to begin with, if you plant in April, it may be 12 or 14 foot tall. It may do just fine, it may not. But I think in a lot of instances, those little bit shorter hybrids may do a little bit better if we plant them late. The different traits. And this particular location, Larry, he's good at controlling our corn borers, I think, because we haven't had a whole lot of corn borers here in the last few years. And so our differences between a non-BT and a BT hybrid have not been all that great, even with some of the later planting dates. But where we do have corn borers, I can easily pick up 15 or 20 bushel differences between a BT and non-BT, especially when we get into April or even an earlier May planting. So, getting hot out here, Larry. My sweat's running down my eyes. 2 minutes, okay. But I think in general, what we found out of these trials is how well that crop grows off and what the weather is. June and July really dictates what kind of corn yield we have. If we plant it early, it grows off good, we get the stand we want, we're probably going to have good yields. Now we've had later planted corn do really well. It was one of those years, it was a cooler June, July, we got some rainfall, and those years I think later plantings may actually do a little bit better.